And I'm sure all of you are ready to go out and enjoy a little bit more of Kyiv, but unfortunately you're going to have to listen to me for about 10 minutes to close the session and to do something that I think is very important, and that is to remind everyone and applaud the success of civil society. I was in the background listening to an amazing discussion of the technology that has been brought, that all of you are using to get out a message and to get out the work that you do. And it reminded me of how far all of you and we have come in this region in terms of just mobilizing civil society and becoming active, engaged members of democracies. So I'm really grateful to be here today and to take part in this important meeting, which I think has also brought activists from across Europe and Eurasia to share their experiences and best practices with their counterparts, and I hope you've had a chance to do that. But as someone who oversees U.S. assistance to this region, which I'll talk a little bit more, this is, all of you here, is what we call a force multiplier. And I see very much that the investments that not only the U.S. has made, but others, someone referred to international donors, that we've been making over 25 years are continuing to pay dividends, and important dividends. And activists from countries that have been phased out of our assistance, such as the change makers from Poland, are here to share their experiences with all of you that still need critical support from all of the international donors and those here in Ukraine who support you. And I'm sure that others who have strong civil society organizations elsewhere have also benefited greatly from what they've learned here. But I also want to thank you for inspiring us. I mentioned that the United States has been sending foreign assistance to this region for at least 25 years. In 1989, and then again in 1991, we saw that many countries in Central and Eastern Europe and the former Soviet Union, free for the first time since World War II, were determined to take on their own political destiny. So for the past 25 years, we've worked with our European partners to support these countries as they reform their political and economic systems. And we're inspired by those of you who have worked tirelessly to do this and to help your country and your citizens adopt the very painful reforms that were needed to advance your democratic transitions. And I want to just pause for a minute to also say that as active civil society organizations, and you were talking about social media and technology, I think it is very important to help the public and the citizens of this region and the country that are still trying to figure out what reforms, what is the impact of reforms that their governments are undertaking, and how, and to understand why in many cases it is good over the long run for the prosperity and the freedom of their country. Sometimes that is very hard for people to understand because there are many voices that are probably not so interested in supporting those reforms. But it is important, I think, to also have a robust discussion about the impact and why it's important to undertake those. We, as the United States, that has also helped to sponsor this conference, you've inspired us to redouble our efforts and increase our assistance so that the reform goals that you've set and that your citizens have set have become a reality. We've directed much more of our support to fighting corruption, to increasing transparency and accountability, and building a government that serves its people effectively and efficiently. For the past 2 years, we've joined our European, Canadian, and multilateral partners to ramp up our assistance to support such reforms in Ukraine in particular, although we also do it across this region. Since the crisis, just to highlight what we have done here in Ukraine, since the crisis began in 2014, we've committed almost $1.3 billion in assistance to advance these reforms and strengthen institutions, to provide the humanitarian relief that has been needed, to help Ukraine more safely monitor and secure its borders and preserve its territorial integrity. And I am here on this visit for the next couple of days, engaging both with civil society and with the government and parliamentarians to understand better what the trajectory for reforms will continue to be here, and the challenges and the ways in which we can help both the government and both civil society. We are making a big investment in Ukraine. I just also came from Georgia. We're continuing to make a very strong investment in Georgia and Moldova and the Western Balkans. We've been inspired also because we see the challenges that you continue to face. Many old guard corrupt politicians are still in their chairs. Corrupt prosecutions against the Yanukovych era are still to be undertaken. And a media sector is still largely financially dependent on vested interests. Nevertheless, I think in this very short period, we've seen some really important triumphs here in Ukraine. I want to highlight a few. The reanimation package of reforms, coalition of over 300 academics, experts, civil society activists have created a really unified front for democratic reforms that the government cannot ignore. And I have on my desk actually their pamphlets that help me to remind what the successes on the reforms, but equally what is still yet to be done. Through their expert analysis and dogged advocacy, I think over 60 of their laws have been passed since the revolution, including laws establishing the National Agency for the Prevention of Corruption, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, and bringing Ukraine closer to a European path that the Ukrainians have chosen as a free, modern, and democratic state. Civil society, I'm sort of preaching to the choir, I think, have played a critical role overseeing the implementation of these reforms. And I go back to my plea to please help those who are still wondering why reforms are taken and why reforms sometimes are hard to undertake, why they are so important. And whatever tools you use to do that, it is critical. So I just want to say that, again, civil society has been indispensable to Ukraine's efforts to decentralize governance in line with European standards, to help the Ukraine and other countries move closer in this region to a more their more Euro-Atlantic inspiration. We will continue to support civil society. We believe very strongly that civil society is one of the strongest pillars of prosperous and open and free democracies. And those of you who are here trying to find new ways to get out your message and to inform the public, I think you can share your best practices. This is an endeavor that is never over. Many of you are probably watching what is going on in the United States. Our civil society is vibrant. It is very active, has an active voice in helping to inform the American public about what is important to the United States. So for us, civil society is a critical component of strong democracies and of freedom and of prosperity. So again, I'm very glad to have been part of speaking to you, but most importantly, continuing to help civil society prosper in this region. It is so critical given the challenges that I think many of the countries and the citizens here still face. So again, I applaud your work today, and you have the support and the assistance, frankly, of the United States government as well as the Americans who are part of our own civil society and believe strongly in it. So with that, I know it's been a long day, and I want to again thank you for letting me come and speak as a closing speaker. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot. That was Alina Romanowski, the coordinator for the U.S. Assistance to Europe, Eurasia, Central Asia. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.